All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon for the Performing Arts Salon Saturdays information session. We are in our open call. Our annual open call is currently live, and we're organizing today's session to go through the application, to talk today about the opportunity, to give an overview of the program, and to answer any questions that you might have. So how we'll operate today is we'll do some brief introductions. We'll go through an overview of the past open call opportunity that's currently live. We'll take you through some imagery from previous artists in residence and just kind of give you a better feel of the program before we dive into a Q&A session. So if you do have questions, I would say jot them down and be prepared to enter them either into the chat or into the Q&A box. And we will likely hold questions until the end unless it seems very relevant to the section that we're covering. I want to take a moment just to say that if you are needing closed captions, you should have the option to enact closed captions on your screen in the menu bar. Whether you're on mobile or on your computer, there should be an option where the menu bar for Zoom is. So if you have any technical questions, feel free to just plug them in the chat and we'll do our best to assist you. We also are recording today's session, so we do plan to post it to Snug Harbor's YouTube channel. And so if you need to go back and revisit it, if there was something in what you hear today that you want to re-listen to, you're invited to do that. And we typically post our information session, I would say within 48 hours. So I would say by Friday of this week, the link to the YouTube recording should be live. So stay tuned for that. So as we begin, I'm going to take a moment just to introduce myself and have the team introduce ourselves. My name is Melissa West. I'm the director and senior curator of the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art here at Snug Harbor. And I am very excited to lead today's session. PASS is a program that is near and dear to my heart. It was founded in 2015 by Gabri Krista. I started working at Snug Harbor in 2015, so I was here right as the program was taking shape, which was a very exciting opportunity. And so I've been able to help steward it into its current format as an open call. And the program has grown quite a bit since we started it 11 years ago now. And so I'm really happy to be here, happy to answer your questions, and looking forward to sharing what we've got going on here today. Lexi?
Hi everyone, I'm Lexi Cordato. I'm the artistic programming coordinator for the Newhouse Center. I'm pretty much going to be the person that will be contacting you via email if you are selected as a past performer. And you will see a lot of me pretty much. See a lot of me running around, a lot of emails from me, coordinating. And I'm usually along Melissa's side, so you'll be dealing with us quite a lot. And I'm excited to get started today and help and clarify any questions that anybody has.
Thank you, Lexi. And so Lexi and I are kind of a dynamic duo. Snug Harbor has a larger team that focuses on various aspects of operations of our 83-acre campus, but the two of us are the main points of contact for this program. So you will see us a lot, as if you come to a PASS event, if you are an artist in residence, you'll get to know us quite a bit. So today we're going to go through the open call process for this year. There are several new developments in terms of how to submit your application and just some updates as we've been refining this open call over the last couple of years. So I'll make sure to highlight where there is something different from previous years in case you are someone who has maybe applied in the past. And we will go through it step by step. I wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge the Howard Gilman Foundation. They are the lead supporter of PASS and the performing arts programming at Snug Harbor. So we are really grateful for their support, as well as the Department of Cultural Affairs, the New York State Council on the Arts, and the Samuel I. Newhouse Foundation, all of whom support PASS and our performing arts programming quite a lot. So we'd like to just extend our gratitude. So I'm going to move through this presentation and we'll start at the beginning, which is going back in time a little bit to share just some background on Snug Harbor. Um, some of you may be listening in, maybe you are already familiar with Snug Harbor, but I always assume that maybe there's some new folks on the call. So it's always great to just get a sense of the history of the site because it informs everything we do. And so you see here this aerial view of Snug Harbor's campus. This image goes back to the late 19th century, and you can see if you're familiar with Snug Harbor that some of it is quite different, but a lot of the buildings still remain, and it still kind of looks very similar to how we know Snug Harbor today. So this is an image from the Sailors Snug Harbor archives at SUNY Maritime College, and it takes you back to what the original use of our campus was. And so Sailors Snug Harbor was a site for retired sailors in the 1800s into the mid-century, into the mid-20th century. This site was created at a time when sailors, as a population of workers, were really underserved and had really hard lives at sea, and sometimes were at sea for years at a time, and didn't necessarily have roots back home. And so through the vision of Robert Richard Randall, with the support of Alexander Hamilton, the Trust for Sailors Snug Harbor was established in the early 19th century. And in 1833, we opened our doors to sailors. And for over 100 years after that, up until the early 1970s, Sailors Snug Harbor on Staten Island served merchant marines and sailors from across the globe, and provided all of the things that they would need to live out their lives in dignity and with support. And so it was a model of charitable giving in a time when that really wasn't necessarily a guarantee. And so this was before Social Security and a lot of the social safety net programs of the 20th century came into play. And so these buildings were the dormitories or the living spaces of the sailors who lived here. And during the 1960s, a lot of transformation was happening. These buildings were actually slated for demolition, and they were saved by the community of Staten Island. Staten Islanders who remembered the sailors got together and really kind of stood up for preservation and kind of telling that story through the generations. So Sailors Snug Harbor as it was, Sailors Snug Harbor as it is today. We are an 83-acre culture park nestled on the north shore of Staten Island. We are about 10 minutes by bus from the Staten Island Ferry, which connects to Manhattan and the rest of New York City. And our campus is a beacon for artists in the visual and performing arts. We have several museums on site, an art school. There is 83 acres of lush botanical garden spaces, a farm. And so it's really quite a unique place in New York City. It's sort of like a little bit out, sort of like off the beaten path, I would say. And so we have served as a residency space for artists since the 1970s. We're actually coming upon our 50th anniversary for Snug Harbor within the next year. And so we'll be doing a lot of celebrating around that moment. But it all goes back to this vision for the arts on Staten Island. And so it's one of those places where if you have not stepped foot yet, I encourage you to come visit this spring. It is truly a remarkable, beautiful place, and really, I think, inspires artists in a very unique way. So we figured that these images would give a little sense of what to expect while you are here. And starting with some of our imagery throughout the presentation, we'll highlight previous artists in residence and how they use the beautiful, interesting spaces that create opportunities at Snug Harbor. So the first is Madeline Scher. Madeline was a dance and pass artist in 2026. Madeline performed for the dance festival and had their performance recently after living on site for several weeks for residency time. And so this is a beautiful image from the summer, last summer, and you can see that the gardens are in full bloom. And so now I'm going to take us through the Pass Open Call to kind of just create a sense of what this opportunity is about. Again, if you have questions, listen in and feel free to plug them into the chat, and we'll get to them soon. So the Pass Open Call. We have an annual open call for performing artists. It is part of the Pass program. Pass stands for Performing Arts Salon Saturdays. And so, as you can see, there is a dual nature of this program. It is simultaneously an artist residency to provide you space and time to develop your work. And then on a Saturday at the end of your residency time, there is a public sharing of that work in a salon style format. And that is, the sort of output of your residency time and an opportunity to share with the community. And so this year, we're excited to select 4 artists for residencies that'll happen over the next year in dance, music, theater, and multidisciplinary performance. And I will say we're pretty broad in terms of how we're defining those disciplines. So if you are someone who maybe doesn't fit neatly into a certain box, or your artwork is interdisciplinary, there is definitely still room for you in this program. And we'll go through the categories and some of the specifications over the next couple of slides. When you are selected as an artist in residence through Pass, you have the opportunity to live and work on campus. So that's one of the unique, exciting aspects of this residency program, is that we have live workspace. And so we'll show you some of the accommodations that we currently have. Artists are invited to live for 4 weeks at a time, and at the end of that 4 weeks is when you share out your performance in progress with the community. We're pretty flexible in what that performance looks like and that presentation looks like. We're also fairly flexible about what the residency looks like, knowing that artists have very different needs, and one project from the next will be quite different. So there is a bit of the opportunity to make your residency truly your own. And I will say that artists have shared their work across the campus. So we've had performances in the gardens, in outdoor spaces, in the galleries, at the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art, and many other spaces in between. Although we do try to have a footprint in the dance center and the carpenter shop, which will show you those spaces. We do like work that is a little off the beaten path. And so there is an invitation, if you are creating in a non-traditional space, this might be a great opportunity for you. So we're going to go through the program objectives. These are the reasons why Pass exists, why this program exists. Our objectives are threefold: to provide space and support for performing artists at different stages in their careers to develop and deepen their craft. So I will note that this is not explicitly an opportunity for emerging artists. You can be an artist at any career stage. You can be an artist of any age, and we're, as long as I think our parameters are 18 and up, and that you cannot be in school, which we'll get into a little bit later. But the opportunity is pretty open, and we've hosted artists who are just starting out and artists who are further along in their careers. And there is a need to support artists at varying moments in their journey. And so I just want to make sure that that's fully communicated because sometimes artists in residency programs are perceived as for emerging artists, and so we just want to make sure that that's fully clear. The other program objectives include incubating discourse and community engagement around new ideas and artistic expression. So, kind of generating space to innovate and to test ideas and to be in conversation with the community. And finally, cultivating a supportive environment for artists to take creative risks in your process, practice, and vision. And so, really creating a container for you to go a little bit further into your process and maybe take a departure, maybe take a step in a new direction, or to go a little bit deeper into something that you're really excited by. And so this space is really kind of open. It's open for creative development. So the important, kind of information, I think that's really, front and center is the timeline and making sure you get your deadline met. And so our submission deadline is Wednesday, May 6th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. This is a hard and fast deadline. So I encourage everyone to work on your application in advance in a separate workspace, perhaps through your Google, Drive or through your phone or writing it down on paper, just making sure that you have it written down. I wouldn't wait until the last minute and I wouldn't, just plug it into the application portal. You want to make sure that you're saving your stuff as you go along so that way you can reuse it for other applications and also so that, you have it just in case technology goes awry. So Wednesday, May 6th at 11:59 p.m. Don't wait until the last moment. We're going through the program guidelines, but you can also find them at our website on the open call page. And so we'll plug that link into the chat so that you can easy access it. That is where all of our guidelines will be listed for this program. And so we encourage you to review them as you are preparing for your application. It is worth mentioning that incomplete, ineligible, or late submissions will not be reviewed. And so we'll go through the eligibility requirements to make sure that everyone knows what they are. But if you do not complete your application, if you only it's not really possible to not submit the full application because of the way that it's formatted in SlideRoom. But if, for example, you leave certain questions blank or you don't really go into it, we have the right to forfeit that application. So I would say really pay attention to all the questions. Make sure you go through each question before you're ready to submit. And again, make sure that you're getting it in before the deadline. We will then go into a juried panel review process where we review all of the applications. We sometimes get upwards of 100 applications, so it is fairly time consuming to go through all of them. So we anticipate being able to notify all applicants by July 10th. That is the deadline for us to send out our notifications to all applicants, whether they are successful or not, to let you know the status by July 10th. And all residencies that are awarded will take place between July 1st, 2026 and June 30th, 2027. So just keeping those deadlines and dates in mind. So we will select 4 artists, and the award for this opportunity includes a $2,000 residency and performance honorarium that is paid to the lead artist. If you are submitting as a collective or you are working with collaborators, the artist whose submission was selected will be the person that receives the honorarium. We also offer up to 100 hours of fully subsidized rehearsal space in the dance center, the carpenter shop, or the galleries at Snug Harbor. The location is based on availability and need, and so we work with each artist to make sure that they're placed into the best possible studios for their rehearsal needs, and also taking into account our busy shared spaces that we have to program around. So you can learn more about our dance studios on our website. We're also going to share some imagery so you can see the dance studios and the carpenter shop later in the presentation. We also award 1 month of private access to a historic cottage located at Snug Harbor. And so this is a fully subsidized 4 week private residence, and you are um, perfectly poised to engage in the full campus experience of being able to live and work on site, of being able to invite collaborators in to share space with you. And so the private residence, which is, fully yours for the full month that you're here and you have exclusive access to, is a real, asset in terms of just truly digging into your work and having that dedicated space and time. So we're really proud of that, that we're able to offer private residency accommodations on site. And finally, we do photo and video documentation of the work in progress showing. And so that is for your portfolio, for your future reference points, and you're able to share that. If you have a portfolio that's online or a website, you're able to share the photo and video documentation. So it's kind of, collectively, this package is really made to support your full process and where you are in your creative work at this time. The photo and video documentation has been really beneficial to a lot of the artists that we work with, because you're able to kind of have a professional snapshot of what your residency work looked like. Eligibility. So this is a free and open call to performing artists and performance artists who are living and working in New York City. So this is one of the changes from previous years. In previous years, we had it open to the New York metro area, which included parts of Westchester and Long Island and New Jersey. We're zeroing in this year on New York-based artists. So if you live in one of the 5 boroughs, that is a requirement this time around. And that's really to make sure that our resources are focusing on artists in the community, New York City artists, artists that are here and able to benefit from this sort of dedicated residency time. We are especially keen in supporting Staten Island artists. So if you are a Staten Island based artist or you know someone in the community who doesn't or hasn't heard about this, please share and spread the word. We want to make sure that local representation is present in this process. So living and working in New York City with a demonstrated history of creating original work and live performance. And so how we're defining that is that you have to have the demonstration of at least one performance, public performance in the last, I think, 7 years. And I think believe it's 7 years. So, it's we understand, especially with the pandemic, which is not too far in the distant past, right? Like it's still present and has impacted artists. So we get that like not every artist is presenting work every year. And so we just ask that you have a history of presenting live work within the last 7 years. And we that is where the work sample comes into play in sort of demonstrating that. You must be over 18 to apply. 18 or over, sorry, you can be 18 to apply. And here are the 2 points of eligibility that if you are not, you're not eligible if you were a previous past artist at this time. We are looking at ways to open that back up to artists who maybe were served earlier in the program's history. But at this time, if you've received a past residency between 2015 and now, you are not eligible to apply, as well as if you are enrolled in a college or university degree granting program between July 1st of 2026 and June 30th, 2027. You are not currently eligible to apply. So I'm sorry in advance to those of you who will be in school at that time, but it's something to maybe keep on the horizon for the future. But if anyone has eligibility questions, please feel free to plug them into the chat. And so now we'll go through program requirements and talk through each of these. So if you are selected as an artist in residence, there are several deliverables that we will ask of you. So the first is to develop your proposed project at Snug Harbor during the agreed upon residency timeframe. That is kind of a given, but it's always worth being very clear about that, that you must spend time here and do work here if awarded a residency. Um, Secondly, you must meet with curatorial staff a minimum of 3 times. And so this can be virtual or in person, depending on where you are at in your residency phase. So we typically request a meeting prior to the residency so that we can show you the venues and kind of do a walkthrough of the space. We'd like to meet with you at the beginning of your residency and kind of usually couple that as like an orientation where we get you settled into the space. And then we usually host a production meeting midway through the residency. And so, those are the 3 meetings that we typically require of our artists in residence. The third, you must present your work during a culminating work in progress public performance. So there is a public engagement part of this residency, and that is at the end of your residency, typically on a Saturday, hence the program's name, to do a work in progress. And so that is, it sort of can be structured in a semi-informal way. It's not a fully fledged performance, with the bells and whistles. It really is just an opportunity to share where you are at in your process. Um, uh, it's typically, I would say, about 30 to 45 minutes of material that's presented. And that can take many different shapes. So artists have in the past chosen to do a full 30 to 45-minute presentation from start to finish. Some artists choose to do excerpts from aspects of where they're at in their process, or maybe 1 or 2 pieces paired together that are shorter in length. Sometimes artists are interested in talking in between what they're showing. So it can take various forms. We've had artists who are working in sound but are doing some film work, and so they're pairing a brief live performance with a video installation. So there's really many different ways to approach it. We're here to guide you toward that outcome, and the next deliverable is kind of a follow-up of the performance, which is that there is an informal curtain chat discussion, or what we consider a Q&A, a question and answer session at the end, typically moderated by myself or someone from Snug Harbor's staff or community, and is really an opportunity to just engage in a dialogue with the audience. You may have questions for the audience. Audience members may have questions for you. I typically start out that conversation just to get the conversation going. And it's really just an opportunity to think about how the work translates into a conversation, and especially for artists who are kind of at the earlier stages of their process, and even those of you who might be toward the end of your creative development for a particular project, being able to check in with like, how did that make people feel is, a nice way to kind of cap off your residency experience. What was the response, and did that match your expectations, or have you got, did that maybe spur up some new ideas on the work? So the Q&A is an important part of the program requirement. And then we do invite the artist in residence to participate in some type of digital engagement, whether that is a blog post where maybe you share out a little bit about your process, or we've done IG Lives with artists to check in on your residency and get people excited about your upcoming performance. It could be as simple as sharing a little snippet from, whether they're photos or videos from your rehearsal process, and doing a collaborative post. So we're a little bit flexible on that, but we do want to engage in the digital space with you, and share what you're working on. And finally, there is an exit survey at the end of your residency, and it's typically just an opportunity for us to learn about your experience, so that we can take it back as we make continuous improvements to the program. And that's done digitally and is, usually done after your residency has wrapped up. So that's a little bit about the actual residency experience. We're going to go into the selection process. We have operated this program as an open call since 2020, actually, right as the pandemic started. And for each cycle, we invite a juried panel to come and review the applications. And so the juried panel is a closed panel, so we don't release the names publicly, but they're typically comprised of Snug Harbor staff and arts professionals, people who are familiar with Staten Island, people who are familiar with the performing arts and Snug Harbor, to help select the awarded projects. We have changed our criteria this year. So in the past, the criteria had similar, the names of some of these have changed and the percentages. We have shifted to having an equal 25% across the board weight for each of the criteria topics. And so these are the buckets basically that your application will be assessed on. And that includes artistic vision and voice. So how you are able to communicate your singular artistic vision through your narrative and your work samples. That will be 25% of your evaluation. Application narrative. So how are you expressing your ideas through language? Are you able to clearly tell us what you plan to do while you're here at Snug Harbor and what the impact of this residency will be? So how do you communicate that through your narrative responses? And that is also 25%. 25% will be weighted toward site responsiveness and community engagement. So that we'll go into a little bit further, but at the core, we do not want to award residencies that exist in a vacuum. There is a very vibrant community at Snug Harbor across our grounds, as well as beyond across Staten Island. And so we are looking for projects that are to some degree looking to engage with the community, and which community, that sort of depends on what your focus is. But there should be some kind of connection to the site and some kind of connection to the community. That's very broad. It's not something that is super formulaic that we can specifically zero in on to say this is exactly what we're looking for. But to say that, there are so many spaces across New York City that you could go and rent studio space or use in rehearsal space. But why Snug Harbor, I think is the heart of that question. And how are you engaging with the site? How would you engage with the community? We want to hear about that, what your methodology around that might be. And finally, your work samples, which will count as 25% of your application evaluation. So your work samples will go into a little bit further, but we have the option for we are asking for 2 work samples up to 2 minutes in length that we will listen to for each of the samples. And they should represent your work. They do not have to necessarily represent your project that you're proposing, but they should go and kind of give us a clear picture of who you are as an artist and what you're capable of. So this is the current criteria. It's broken down a little bit differently than last year and years past. So I just wanted to make sure that we went through that. And again, if you have questions about that, we can answer them at the end. And so finally, we'll take a little walk through the application. So as I mentioned, there's several components of your application submission. The first is an eligibility questionnaire, and that'll just kind of take you through the basic eligibility that we talked about earlier, making sure that you're not in school during the awarded period, making sure you're not a previous past artist, making sure that you're based in New York City and that you've shown your work publicly at least once within the last 7 years. And once you answer yes, that I meet the eligibility requirements, you'll be taken to the application where you're asked several long form questions about your artistic discipline, your bio, your project description, and your residency goals. And then you'll be asked to submit your work samples. So these are, again, up to 2 minutes each, even if the file is bigger or the video is bigger or the audio file is bigger than or longer than 2 minutes. We will only listen to 2 minutes, so you will have to indicate a cue point. We can accept links between YouTube, Vimeo, Dropbox, SoundCloud. There is also the option to upload a file. I would say it's always preferable to just load the hyperlinks because it is a little bit more efficient for the panel to review it. But you are welcome to submit either a link or to upload a file. So, and again, if you're a sound artist, that can be a previous recording. It could be a live recording. If you're a dance artist or, live performer, it can be a video. We don't currently accept written text. So if you have a script, for example, that you want to share, we need to see that in motion. So, it could be recording a couple of minutes of your colleagues reading the script on camera, but we are not going to review an actual written script. So that's just something if you're working in theater or have that component to your work, we want to see the work in motion either through audio or video. And finally, there is a demographic questionnaire, which must be completed. And that's for us to basically look at a sort of aggregated view of who is applying and just making sure that we're reaching as many people as we can, making sure we understand how efficient we are at reaching communities across New York City, making sure that we are responsive to the needs of our communities as well. So if you are reviewing the demographic questionnaire and there are questions you do not want to respond to, you have an option to select I do not wish to respond. But that section must be completed before you hit submit. So this year we're really excited because we are shifting away from Google Forms, which is how we've been processing our applications in the past, and we are moving into Slide Room, which some of you may have experience filling out applications in Slide Room. It's a pretty common portal for artist residency applications and other opportunities. So we'll plug the link in the chat. It's snugharbor.slideroom.com. That's where you can access our application. It's I will say, very streamlined. And so I'll go through each of the slides because it is a new component of our application that just so you have a visual of that if you haven't started working on your application already. So when you go to Slide Room, to the link that we're going to share, you will see the only open call opportunity that we currently have is pass. And so there's a description of the opportunity and then the option to apply now. You can also click the preview full application button, and that'll kind of just show you the questions that will be in the application. So if you do not have an account, you'll have to sign up for an account. If you already have an account with Slide Room, you can simply sign into your account, and you should be able to hit the apply now button and take it from there. So the first section is the confirmation of eligibility. And so again, it just lists out the eligibility components of the opportunity. And you just have to review it and just say, yes, I am eligible. We do look through the applications. And so if there is a question of eligibility, we will kind of have to follow up on that. But in general, we've tried to list it out as clearly as possible so that it will be easy to answer yes if you are eligible. Once you move through the eligibility, there is the application itself. And so you'll notice that it doesn't have like the basic contact information. That information is collected in Slide Room automatically. So you'll have to fill that out when you set up a Slide Room account. And so your contact information, your email address, all of that information is saved in Slide Room. So you won't see it on this application, but it will be a part of your application packet. And so for here, it just kind of, we have the basic questions, what is your company or collective name? Please check the category that best describes your work. And so again, you'll have to select one, and those options include dance, music, theater, and multidisciplinary performance. And again, we recognize that not everyone neatly fits into a category, but we ask you to select the one that best describes your work. If you are really like interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, I would just go with the multidisciplinary performance as it captures a lot of things that may not fit into the other categories. So we ask for your pronouns, a link to your website. If you do not have a website, you can use a primary public social media or portfolio page, but we do want to have something that we can reference. We also ask for your bio, and so this is a third-person bio outlining your creative and artistic, perhaps educational experience. If you are working as a collective or a company, this is where you can include the bio for, or the mission statement for your group. So that's kind of the first bucket of questions. We will then ask about the residency timeframes that you're available for. And so we have several options available between the fall of 2026 into the spring of 2027. And so those are outlined on the application. We ask that you only check up to 3 selections, that you would be, your top 3 choices. And we also ask if you're available outside of your top 3 choices. Because we operate on a sort of bespoke residency format, we do work really closely with each of the artists to try to maximize the best possible time for you to come here based on your project and availability needs. And so, and our scheduling and our programmatic priorities. So it's really kind of a scheduling dance. So that's why we ask you to really kind of look at the next year and let us know your top preferences for being here. Additionally, we ask for the project proposal. So what is the project you plan to develop while in residence? And we ask you to include the details about the ideas and the themes that you're working on, who you're working with, who are your collaborators, how will this project advance your artistic vision, and kind of just giving the overall description of what the project you hope to develop while you're here is. Further, we do ask you if you are collaborating with other artists to go into detail and list who you're collaborating with, who will be coming into this residency process with you, and what their roles are. So the application continues to ask, just the sort of basic questions that I offered earlier, which is why Snug Harbor? Why is this the ideal venue for you to develop and explore your work? And what are you hoping to achieve through this residency? And so you can outline your project goals. How is this residency going to get this project to where it needs to go or where you want it to go? So those are 2, I think, really important questions to think about before you submit your application. And then just finally, do you have plans to premiere this work between the July 2026 and June 30th, 2027 period? If you have a confirmed venue, we just want to know that so we can help you again, like kind of maximize your residency opportunity with us. Finally, we ask if you have any equipment or technical needs for your residency. It is worth noting that Pass is considered a low-tech residency. So we're in non-traditional venues on site. We are operating in a kind of almost in the round kind of low-tech space. And so there are basic sound equipment, some very basic lighting options. But at the end of the day, it is kind of about activating the site in the creative ways that you have available to you. So low tech for what it's worth, but there's a lot of options within that we can support. Finally, if there's any additional information that you'd like us to know about you or your work, there is a space to do that toward the end of your application. And then we ask, how did you hear about this opportunity? Because we want to keep track of how we're reaching people. Finally, as I mentioned, we have a demographic survey. This is for evaluation purposes for us as we're working toward a more equitable application process and wanting to really understand how we're reaching people. And so this information is not shared individually, like we do not share this portion of your application with any of the panelists. We typically use it as an anonymous and aggregated snapshot of this is the sort of demographic overview of who we've reached and how we've reached people over this application cycle. So again, there is an option if you don't wish to respond to individual questions to select I prefer not to respond, but each answer does have to be filled out. So there are all the options available once you sign into SlideRoom. And finally, there is your application work sample. And so this is the space for you to upload your application samples. And again, we're asking for 2 work samples. We're asking for unedited continuous work samples. So recognizing that if you're working in like film or like there's a film component and you're sharing some footage of that, like that might be edited, but that makes sense. But if you're showing excerpts of a live performance, we want to kind of see it continuously without editing. So please, as you're looking through your work samples, you want to be thinking about what is the best representation of your work. Again, it does not have to be of the proposed residency project. And it can be a longer video or audio file, but we will only review 2 minutes, so you will have to indicate a cue point. If you don't indicate a cue point, we will start from the beginning, and that might not be where you want us to start, so you want to make sure to list the cue point. And again, you can upload the video, although we're always, encouraging people to load links to YouTube, Vimeo, and SoundCloud wherever possible. It is, overall slightly more efficient, but we do also accept the files themselves. So that is kind of an overview of your application. Again, this is in SlideRoom this year, so it's a little bit new for those of you who may have submitted in the past. And we're really excited about that because it's going to make things easier, I think, from an application perspective, in terms of like having a format and being able to save your work and go back. And then also for the panel to be able to review your work in SlideRoom. It's a nice shift away from Google Forms. And also thank you for those of you who have applied in the years past through Google Forms, because we appreciate your dedication to the process. So that's kind of an overview of the application. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lexi to share about our spaces.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. So pretty much during your past residency, you will have the opportunity to stay at one of our 19th century, mid-19th century cottages. They were approximately built in the 1850s. Snug Harbor was originally founded in 1801 and then resurrected in 1830, 1831. So this was a few years after. Historically, these cottages, Cottage A and Cottage B, which will be available for your residency, see were historically used to house matrons and laborers who helped build the site. So it's really great to be living in a space that has so much history and has such a connection, especially because we want your projects to be rooted in community and has something to do with our site as well. So this is the exterior of Cottage B. Currently, we have Cottage A going through some renovations and a restoration project, but Cottage B is currently up and running, and we actually currently have a past artist living in there. So we're just going to continue on to the next slide, which shows the living room area. So each cottage has a living room area, a dining room area, a full kitchen that comes with appliances, two full bathrooms, and 2 to 3 bedrooms, depending on the cottage. Cottage A has 3 bedrooms, and Cottage B has two, and both of them have 4 beds with also an additional pull-out couch. As you can see in this image, there is a full couch that pulls out to a full-size bed. So if you are working in a team or a company, you can stay here. If you have collaborators that would like to stay over, I won't get into the process, but we do have a process of collecting their names and headshots to alert security, and you can have guests who stay over. So we try to accommodate that as much as possible, knowing that you may have visitors from other New York City boroughs, maybe people from other states that are helping with building props or choreographing or costumes or something of that nature. So we do have these living room areas as a common area. The one thing that we do not have in these cottages are TVs. And that is purposely so that you connect with the natural setting of Snug Harbor and the gardens that are on campus. We really want this to be a grounding residency or grounding experience for you and your team. We do have Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is available at the cottages as well as many of the buildings at Snug Harbor, including the dance center. And usually if we have an issue with Wi-Fi or something, just because of the nature of the buildings and the site are older, we have hotspots that are available to accommodate, especially if you're looking to practice outside, as a lot of artists in the past have put their rehearsals out on the lawns and stuff like that. So we're good at accommodating those differences based on your team. So we can go to the next slide. So just another image of the other living room in the opposite cottage. Very similar. They're both very similarly set up. There's very few differences between both cottages. So you're not really missing out on one cottage if you get another. We go to the next slide. This is the dining room, as I mentioned. You'll see that there are fireplaces. Those are not functional. They are just for aesthetic. So it is a very beautiful space to be in. We can go to the next one. And this is an example of one of the bedrooms. Currently, this is an older image. Currently, we actually have in Cottage B, we have 3 twin-size beds and 1 full-size bed. And similarly with Cottage A, we also have 3 twin-size beds and 1 full-size bed with an addition of the pull-out full-size bed couch in each cottage. So within these bedrooms, we also have closets with hampers where we take care of laundry. The one thing about Snug Harbor is that we do not have a washer and dryer on campus, but we do have local laundromats that can accommodate you. Everything on Staten Island, if you're not familiar with Staten Island, everything's very close by. Everything can be taken either with local bus routes or with an Uber. Or to walk actually. So everything's pretty close by when it comes to food, laundry, other amenities. We can go to the next slide. Another example of the bedrooms. And then, so we're going to start getting into the rehearsal spaces that we offer, as well as performance spaces. So the dance center currently has 3 available studios that you can rehearse in. There is specifically one studio that we use for performances. That is the one that's being shown here. This is room G201. It's a beautiful space. No shoes on. So usually we use this for contemporary jazz type dance, encourage that. It's very versatile. And then in other studios, we have one that has bars that can usually be used for ballet with Marley flooring, which is this image right here. This studio, not pictured, but on the opposite wall to where the photo is being taken, there is a full wall of mirrors as well. And so this is really great as well. And then we do have a third studio, which is not included in this, but that one we is more hard flooring. So we encourage people who are tap dancers to use that one as well. Another space that we have, so the Newhouse Center is currently and has always been located in building C and G. The dance center is located in building G on the second floor. So this is the first floor. So we are connected on the same building. So we have a lot of different spaces to offer within the same building. This is where we usually have our visual art galleries and our exhibitions, but we have also in the past used this for rehearsal space and potentially even performance space. But this is usually an overflow, being that our rehearsal spaces that we offer from the dance center as well as the carpenter shop, which I will get into, are shared spaces from multiple renters across the campus because we are a very big communal place that a lot of people do use our spaces. If we need to accommodate you for a day or time that you need a rehearsal and our dance center is not available, we can pretty much schedule an overflow rehearsal into one of these spaces, such as this one. So we can go to the next slide. This is the carpenter shop. This was newly renovated, new floors, as well as an HVAC system. So it's great for pretty much any month out of the year at this point. We have recently had quite a few performances in here, as well as many dancers who have used this as rehearsal space, and a lot of performers who have used this as rehearsal space. Our current past artist is also one who does a lot of art builds, and so their visual art practice is also using this space to kind of bring their vision to life. And so it has beautiful lighting. There's also artificial lighting, but one of the great things about the space is how much light comes through this building, and it's very central to the campus, and so it's very easy to locate, very simple for guests to find for your performance as well as to navigate during your own residency. So we go to the next one. So this is an example. This is Zayn Alum, who did a film-based performance. This was in one of the galleries. We have 4 galleries, and this was in gallery 3 that we have. So we, as Melissa iterated, it is a low-tech residency. We do have a couple of projectors that we can provide that we did actually use for a recent performance. And so we try to work with your vision as much as possible. So if looks like something that it has to do with film, then we do have spaces that can hold projections at a large scale. And then, so this was actually the performance I was just referencing. So we have Kevin Lee White Green. This was our most recent past performance that just happened in the carpenter shop. As you can see, there is a projection screen behind Kevin and his company. So we try our best to accommodate based on what you would like your performance to look like. Especially in the carpenter shop, we kind of split the space in half to where we have an audience looking towards a type of stage setup. But we can always, we try to work with you during our 3 meetings to figure out the best way for seating, for audience and performer interaction. And yeah, so we can go to the next slide. So this is another example. We have performers in the Newhouse Main Hall Gallery, which is in Building C, which is the oldest building on campus. And this was all of their own tech, I would like to clarify. We do, as we said before, a lot of our low tech, we can provide microphone and a small PA system as well as some low tech projectors. But, we have spaces that accommodate larger groups that have a lot of equipment with them as well. And then we have Rebecca Medina, who is a past artist from 2021. So as Melissa stated before, that we have had a few artists who have performed outside. This is in the New York Chinese Scholars Garden, right outside of it. And although it is not the most common to have them outside, and there may be restrictions when it comes to performance-wise because it is a public campus, everything is pretty accessible. We are willing to work with our other coworkers on the campus and the rest of the board to kind of figure out where we can accommodate you and your vision when it comes to your performance, especially if it's in an outdoor setting. Again, this is another example. This is in the Heritage Farm. This is a little bit more restricted than the New York Chinese Scholars Garden. Again, it really does depend on exactly where you're looking to have it, but it's always a good conversation to have in different outdoor spaces, especially because the Heritage Farm, we currently have the Sustainability Center part of it too. So if that has something to do with your vision, something to do with your narrative of your project, with sustainability, with interacting with nature, this is also another option that can be discussed. This is another example of the carpenter shop. We had Julie Maniscalco last year with her octet doing jazz on a jazz ensemble. And so again, she and her crew also provided all of their own instruments and equipment, but had a little bit more of an intimate audience closer to the setup of where they were playing. And so just another option for those who are musicians and not dancers or theatrical artists as well. And this is another image that's with more of a theatrical vibe, also from Madeline Scher, who was shown at the beginning of this presentation as well. Her project combined dance, music, vocals, instruments. She had a very multidisciplinary performing art piece, so it just gives a good example of what we can support and how creative you can get with a residency like this. And then we have Adrienne Westwood, who did a performance in Cottage B. Cottage B is also one of those spaces similar to the Heritage Farm where it's not common to have a performance in. It comes with a lot of restrictions because Cottage B and the Heritage Farm are similar in the way that they are not easily accessible to the public and are usually during normal days and normal hours are protected by security for the public not to enter. We can, of course, if this is something that you want your project to look like, as the space looks like it's part of your vision, again, it can be discussed. We can definitely figure out a way, we always do, to make your vision come to life. And then we have Grace Healy Tong, who was a past artist last year as well. You can see that Grace went towards more of the costume route as well, which was really interesting. So you don't always need to have all this equipment for your performances. It could just be based in, costume and props, and could be pretty self-contained and still be creative and very engaging for the audience. This was in the dance center in room G201, as I mentioned before, which is our main dance studio that we use for performances that has really great lighting, and the flooring is really great for rehearsing as well as just dancing upon for interacting with audiences. So that's a good example as well. And then we have the Kinesis project, where we had this group perform in Shinbone Alley. Shinbone Alley is a public access place as well, very similar to the New York Chinese Scholars Garden in that way. It is located between the buildings, the front five and the five that connect them, underneath the hyphens, which is what we call these brick corridors, as you can see on the right-hand side. And so there are tunnels that connect each other. It's really, really interesting space, as well as some permanent sculptural elements, as you can see on the left-hand side. It could make a really great interactive outdoor experience for a lot of people. And then finally, I'm just going to review the application checklist again. We really want to reiterate that this time we are doing it on Slide Room and not Google Forms. Your application materials should be submitted by Wednesday, May 6th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. And a part of the completed application form includes the four sections: eligibility, applicant information, work samples, and demographic survey. You can find all the specifics back on the link that was originally shared in the chat at snug-harbor.org/open call. And just a reminder that late and incomplete submissions will not be reviewed. Please make sure you submit prior to the deadline, and we recommend working on and saving your narrative in a separate document. As for any questions, you can type them in the chat now, either in the Q&A panel or in the general chat, and we will answer them after this slide. But if there are any questions that you think of after the fact and you're like, oh shoot, I should have asked that while I was on the call, we have our general email, which is info@snug-harbor.org. And I think that's it.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for kind of going through that step by step. We appreciate the opportunity to share the previous artists in residence photos just to really give you a taste of what is possible because we've worked with a lot of really interesting artists across many sort of unique and non-traditional spaces. So it's always good to have a visual of that. So now I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and then we're just going to take an opportunity to look at the chat and see if there were any questions. I think there's also a Q&A box that we can look at. So I don't see any questions in the Q&A box. I did see a hand at one point. So if anyone has a question now, I would say to use this opportunity. You can either type it into the chat or you can type it into the Q&A box. And we'll hold this space for a couple of minutes and see if there are any questions, anything that needs clarification. Otherwise, we invite you to visit the links that Lexi posted in the chat.
I'm also going to share right now our Instagram as well, so you can keep up to date on any other public programming, including any future past events that we currently have for this past season.
So someone posted, "Hi everyone, hello." Thank you for that. Always great to have you on the call. So again, any questions, feel free to use the chat or the Q&A box. And if there aren't, as Lexi said, there are ways to stay connected with us. You'll likely receive an email tomorrow from Zoom just following up on this call, and it will include a link to our YouTube channel. As I said, we will post this video recording. It likely won't be up until later this week. So if you need to refer back to this at any point, I would say check it out later this week on our YouTube channel. Yeah, so thank you everyone for just sitting in for today's call. The open call goes through May 6th at 11:59 p.m. Spread the word. Take time to focus in on your application. There are ways to get in touch with us if you have questions moving forward. We're really excited to read your applications as you submit them and encourage you to stay connected with us. And we post open calls and other opportunities throughout the year across the visual and performing arts. So there's always something going on at the Newhouse Center at Snug Harbor. Thank you, everyone.
And we do have a question.
Okay, so the question is, I might have missed this before, but is this residency strictly for a month long or is that flexible? So the short answer is we do try to have it contained to a month of 4 continuous weeks. There have been instances where we've had to separate that based on certain factors, but I would say in general, plan to be here for 4 weeks at a time. And artists can come and go during that period. So if you have other responsibilities, other projects, other obligations, we understand that that's often the case. But the residency window is typically 4 weeks at a time. And if there's specific needs around that, we can do our best to accommodate. You're welcome. All right, everyone. I think that's a wrap. We appreciate it. This is going to be a really great residency cycle. We're really excited. Stay connected with us, and thank you so much for sitting in. Thanks.
Thank you.